I think we're good to go. Trying to do too much technology at once. Welcome to today's call. It is Friday, December the 7th of 2018. This is the TRC sales training call. So trying to broadcast live on YouTube and Facebook and all these things. I'm good. I'm ready to go. All right. So listen, we just had a good little private conversation with Paul Cantu's team in Seattle, Washington. And it was good to get some real conversation going with agents who are newer to the business and have some very good questions. And the good news to report is that I caught some people doing some things well. And that is really number one, being resourceful. I think that's the most important thing that I recognize from them is that when you run out of tarmac, right, and you don't know how to take the plane off, you have to be resourceful. So Bridget was talking about issues with closing problems. And there were two sides to that. And when it comes to sales, one of the things that is near and dear to my heart is to make sure that you understand. The first beat is you want to make sure that your processes with third parties are tight. And what I mean by that is that when you're dealing with a lender, it's very critical to understand that you need to hold them to the same standard you hold your own business to. That's very important. And I've had those situations in the past where over my entire career, where I would work on my business and I would make some good progress. And I would see that even if I was helping my partners try to understand where I was at and what I was doing, they weren't into it as much as I was, or they weren't able to do it themselves, and they didn't have the time to work in their business. And I wasn't their coach. I was their business partner. So it wasn't like something I was going to hammer them on. They were either going to step up or I was going to step off. And I did. And I think that's important to understand here is that you have to have affiliates that have a level of competence that matches yours. But more importantly, what I would be looking for is to see if they actually have systems in place. And so especially when it comes to lending, Bridget made a good point. When we teach at the campfire level, we teach this process of 6 steps. She said, yeah, but by the time you get to closing, that's a whole other process in and of itself. And she's right. We've done all these 5 steps to get there. We've talked about representation. We've started to help them with their financing early on. And here's where one of the problems lies. A lot of these people will go off with their own lender. And you'll just assume that that lender is doing what they're doing. And they're doing it correctly. And that's not right. Don't make that assumption. As I said to her, you are the orchestra leader of all sorts of people. And it becomes very important that you hold them to a standard of performance. And how you do that is by beating on your checklist first. If you have certain dates and deadlines of things that have to get done, then you want to have that checklist per file. Now, it's better if you have a closing department that's helping you with that. But even then, I'm in the middle of one right now that's a problem, even though our closing department is pretty much on top of it, even though our lawyer's pretty much on top of it. The communication on the other side just comes up with a huge surprise. So I think there's some real issue with processes. Now, we have to start with us being the problem to begin with. You want to make sure that you are not the problem. So you make sure your process takes responsibility, even though there's third parties, such as lenders, such as home inspectors, appraisers, all of that stuff. You have to be cognizant of its timing and what it means to the deal. Now, when a problem comes up that was really, maybe you couldn't foresee it, I think the most important thing is to be resourceful. Admit the gravity of the situation or admit that course has to be changed. Communicate with your client immediately. Immediately say, look, we got a little wrinkle in the sheets here that we have to iron out, and here's what I'm going to do. Okay. It's not the end of the world, but it is what it is. You have to lean in when the dog bites, as I always like to say. So I think it's really, really important to grab everybody, huddle up and say, here's the problem, but I'm going to be resourceful. Let's figure out what the solution is. And both Bridget and John in their anecdotes did that. In her case, there was a lending issue with product. In other words, the appraiser went out, there were above ground utilities. It was not, I think she said, Fannie Mae approvable. So they had to go find another bank who didn't mind that. And then they found a direct lender, a credit union locally, couldn't care less, lent them the money, and the delay only ended up being 7 days. Bravo. Standing ovation for being resourceful and fixing the issue. So, and on John's side, he was representing the seller, and subsequently it turns out that the product itself, the home, had some problems, had some issues, and he needed to deal with that. And what he needed to deal with was the fact that after they tied him up, and one person, even the third person that walked on it, even $5,000 above the asking price, came back and asked for $50,000 on a house that was in the threes. So, and they didn't provide any backup to that. They just took a bite at the apple, but that was better than walking. So my advice to him was, okay, next time, after you lose one or two over product, and it does become a real issue, I think you have to lean in a little bit more with the discussion with the next buyer than he had. He did a good job, but I think he was still sort of waiting. So instead of, just waiting, just lean in and say, look, we know that the house needs updating. And that's why we've priced it appropriately. We're not looking to have you tie us up and then come back and take some massive bite at the apple without talking. It doesn't mean we don't want you to do your home inspection. Doesn't mean we're hiding anything. We've disclosed everything that we know. But what it does mean is that don't just use this as a negotiation item, okay? Having said that, even though you'll say things like that, they'll still do it. So what you do is remind them, say, look, we asked you not to do this, but it looks like the home inspection pulled up some things my seller doesn't know. Give me your home inspection, or at least your items that are on it, and show me where you're coming up with the math. So you put the monkey back on their back in a negotiation to try to prove to you why they're asking for what they're asking. And that roots out all the nonsensical parts of it where they're just doing it for the sake of doing it, okay? So those were a couple of really good anecdotes from agents on Paul Cantu's team. And I want to say bravo to both of them, because I thought ultimately, sure, you can level up your knowledge and be more resourceful, and that just comes with these experiences. But lastly, Bridget gave John a compliment and said, yeah, John is really calm and he does a great job at staying calm. I'm not so good at that. To which I would reply and say, hey, look, I get that, but this is the single largest emotional transaction most people are going to make in a lifetime. So it becomes really important for us to understand the gravity of that statement and to try to bring our emotional control in check every time something happens, and certainly when it doesn't go our way. Because people aren't looking for us to exacerbate their emotion. They're looking for us to be the steady hand in that emotional state. And that doesn't mean that those people, even when you let them know what's happening, they won't go off. You got to let people have their emotions, let them express them, but be there and don't stop. And don't hide behind text and emails when something's wrong. Pick the phone up and say, what is really going on here? Assess it fully, thoroughly, emotionally. Don't look for it to be this person's fault or that person's. Grab the bull by the horns. That will help you get your own emotions in check, and then you're able to make your business better, okay? And that's the process, by the way, of what we do here every single week. We work on the business. That's what we do. We work on the business every week. And that's what coaching training is for, so that when you go out there in the real world, you're still going to get knocked on the head and it's still not going to go exactly the way that you want it to. But I just want you to be able to have enough of a bag of tools that you can calm yourself down. Think. It's the number one tool that a real estate agent has at their disposal, is to think, how could I be resourceful and be the solution and not be part of the exacerbation of the problem, or really be the problem yourself, okay? Laura and I talk about that all the time. Don't be the problem. And when you are, make an adjustment, put a system in place so you won't trip up again, all right? All right, so when we go into this today, Paul Mihalowicz has been kind enough to share another call from Leah, his VA in the Philippines. I had a fabulous call with her. And I just want to say, last week, we were a little rough on the call. And certainly when you do that, it's because we have an enthusiastic group of top producers that are always looking for micro improvements in their business. And so when we bring it into a more public forum like this, it sounds harsh. And it was, as I considered it. It sounded too aggressive, even though it was out of love. Leah is a fabulously wonderful person. I've coached her one-on-one now several times since then. And I thought her ability to stay calm with people on the phone was wonderful. And I really enjoyed it. I want to just say that in retrospect. So today I have another call that I'm going to break down by Leah, and then I'm going to go into questions. And again, what I ask is, the reason we had to do a private call with Paul's team is, for some reason, people just feel a little bit shy when they come into a public forum to ask their questions. But that's why I just shared with you all what was there. Sometimes people feel those questions are silly. They were fabulous questions I got from Paul's team. And that's why I wanted to share them publicly. I wanted people to see that these are really good questions, okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to Leah. Hey, Leah, by the way, let me just double check the mics. Remember, when I open up the mics, I don't want you to be in a loud spot without muting your end. Don't make me do it to you, okay? So Leah, are you live on the call with me today by any chance? I'm just checking in to see if I got her live. Okay. All right. So we're going to go after her call, break it down for her, and we're going to be kinder and gentler this week than we were last week. Okay. All right. So remember, if you're in a noisy spot, just make sure you mute me, but I'll try to do it. So here we go. Listen in closely. This is Leah calling a lead in Birmingham, Michigan.
Hello. Oh, hello. Good morning. Is this Mr. Gooch? Yes, it is. Hello there, ma'am. My name's Leah. I'm with City Realty. I was actually giving you a quick call here about your property in North Berkshire Drive. I saw it taken off the market earlier, but is this something that you're still thinking about selling, or have you already sold it? No, we still are thinking about it. Okay, good. So do you plan to interview more than one agent for the job of selling your home this time around? Yeah, I think so. Can you tell me again who you're with? Yes, ma'am. I'm with City Realty. Your office in Birmingham. Okay. Right next to the theater? Okay. Right. Okay. So, I guess I'm just curious here, Ms. Baruch. Are you taking a while off for the holiday? Or are you planning? Yeah. Oh. Okay. Well, I totally understand that, of course. That's why I asked. So, I'm just out of curiosity, though. Once you actually do end up selling this home and get it sold, what are you guys actually thinking about thinking next year? We have a condo in Northville that we're renovating. Okay. So, you have a condo in Northville that you're currently renovating. And does that come into play when you guys actually moving? Well, yeah, when we get it finished. Okay. Well, I did notice the property was taken off the market and expired listing. I guess I'm just curious here. Did you guys receive any kind of offer on the home while it was listed with your last agent? You didn't get anything that we really considered to be a serious offer? Oh, wow, okay. Yeah, I guess it kind of makes it a little bit much easier for you guys to take it off the market for the holidays. Okay. But I'm assuming, of course, that you've gotten a lot of traffic, in terms of showings on the property, right? We've had some showings. Yeah, I can't say that there's been, we've had showings. Okay, a couple of things. The kitchen is not brand new. It's far from, you can see the photos that were online. It's not an open floor plan. Two of the bathrooms upstairs are original. They're in excellent shape, but they're original. I'm quite surprised that we haven't received anything. I know that, a downside is the lot. I mean, there's not much of a backyard, but, we lived there for 30 years and raised our child there and, never felt that it was that much of a downer. So I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what the story is. We're going to be interested in chatting with some other folks and doing more of a screening process, I think. And we're probably looking maybe around the middle of January before we would be willing to revisit this. But
very specific.
Yeah, we will be relisting it. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, I'd be interested in having other opinions on what. Of course. I asked individuals ahead of time, should I fix these bathrooms? And oh, no. And then I get comments about, well, you know, your bathrooms are, oh, well, yes, didn't I ask you that? So, sorry, you know, I well, that's really interesting. So, okay, I don't know, you know, I don't know if we're spending a little bit of money to do a little bit, you know, once we transition over. Those are questions that I think, you know, we want to take a look at.
Right there, get it close for that.
I think we started out a little high, but I do think the market is moving, and particularly older homes, we shifted a little in the last year or two. But anyway, so those are things that we have been questions about and would be interested in.
All right, I'm going to stop it there for a second. I'm going to ask people their opinion so far of what would you do if that was you right there. And you just heard this lady's very open. She's going back and forth very openly. It's very, you know, there. I don't want to critique Leah. I want to ask you a question. What would you do right there? Nobody would do anything.
I guess not.
Okay, I'll ask it again. What would you do? Chris Gleb, I haven't heard a word from you, and your body's all broken up, and I know you're probably sitting there, you know, taking some, you know, good medicines. You'll be the first one that I'll ask that question to. When somebody starts to go downhill like that with all of the information and saying they're open to meeting, what would you do? Right there is the question. Hold on, Chris Gleb. Yep.
To come out there and give an evaluation on as is cost on the property and offer. It was tough to hear the whole call.
Yeah.
It was all troubling.
Yeah, it's tough because, and by the way, I discovered that's not actually that's not what it really sounds like. For some reason, when these get recorded and they get sent, because I got on the phone to test that, because I did critique that. If that were ever a real call, it's disturbingly distorted, but it's not. The real calls actually get recorded. I mean, you can hear her very nicely on the VoIP line that she uses. I know that because I've personally trained her, and it was perfectly clear, like she was down the street. So that's the good news. Problem is when we go to train on it, it's tough. So, but again, you heard enough of it to really focus in on what I want to focus in on, the offer. There's an opportunity for an offer right there. In spite of the fact that it's very specific, we will be open to interviewing people. We would be interested to hear some opinions about this. Now, Leah, Paul, and I have talked about this. You know, when we talk, Leah has, when I don't know if it's when she's uncomfortable, it's just a personality type. She's so nice that when she's feeling connected to somebody, she laughs. It's just what she does. It's what it is. So the last time when it sounded like it was a little, you know, inappropriate because the timing was off. It turns out that call we broke down, she actually was able to book an appointment, but it turns out that that's just the way that it is. So that's something that when any of us have that in our makeup, it's like, it's really what we do. If you were meeting somebody the first time in a friendly situation and you just did it, that's just what you do. So you're not going to stop doing that. So I wanted to emphasize that less this time and just say, grab the opportunity as soon as there's a breath. She's doing a good job. She's being patient. The lady wants to get this off her chest. She's telling you what the problems are with the property. It's small backyard, dated stuff. I'd love to do some of this stuff and that stuff, right? But people told us don't do this, etc. And then off we went, right? Hey, did I lose you guys?
I go straight into the seller qualifying question.
Why? I wouldn't.
Well, because she said she's going.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, because I wouldn't. I'll tell you why in a second, but I want to hear yours first. What do you got?
Well, I mean, like everybody on the call, I couldn't really understand half of it.
Yeah.
But because you paraphrased the part in it where she said that she's willing to listen to other people's opinions.
Yeah.
Then I would go through the seller qualifying question, say, well, we'd like to have Gail meet with you could I just ask you a few questions prior to that? Whatever I have on the sales or qualifying. And then that would get more in depth, and then we could make an appointment. I don't know whether it would be in January or whatever, but we get some of the questions answered that are paramount to a listing presentation.
Sure.
I think I disagree with you.
Yeah. Okay, Lindsay, go ahead, because I was going to agree and disagree. I just think her timing's off on those types of questions. But go ahead, Lindsay, because you had a strong reaction to it. Go ahead. Tell me.
Well, if I was in the seller's shoes, I thought that they had a really good connection and it was conversational.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have pushed it to the sales pitch side. I mean, schedule an appointment, but I wouldn't go into the qualifying questions if it was me.
Yeah, I think if Gail's Gail, hold on. Gail's
scheduled appointment.
I know.
With all those questions answered doesn't do me any good.
No. Hold on. All right, hold on. You guys, Gail, you don't have to get defensive on it. I just think the bottom line is this: is that.
Well, no, I'm not defensive. I'm just explaining why I wanted it that way, because I don't want to go in there like you don't want to, Danny, where those questions aren't answered.
Agreed, but you're not there yet. Agreed, but you're not there yet in this conversation, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. One guy's opinion. I don't think you're there yet. I think you're close to there because the lady has revealed we're ready to go. Okay, so look I know you're not going to list the property before the holidays, but would you be interested in having Paul stop by and take a look at those items and give you an analysis? Because that way, at least when it comes to January, you could have our opinion as to whether we think there are things to do prior to relisting. Then, if she says yes, I would break out a more formal questionnaire. Then, but until you see that you're ready to go, I think that's where you're at. You know what I mean? So I get what you're saying, but I just didn't feel like that formal of a question line of thought was at that moment in time. I'm not saying it wouldn't come up in this at all. I'm agreeing with you, but I would have said, geez, it sounds like, you had a lot of conflicting opinions on whether you should or shouldn't, and none of them worked out. So I'll tell you what, Paul follows a very clear, systematic approach that when he looks at the pricing range, sure, it has to do with the conditioning and what you could do or not do. In fact, sometimes he likes to have things priced out and not even have you do them. So I know it's a little tight to the holidays, but if you'd like him to come out now, he could coach you on those situations. So the language just changes a little bit where it's there. Now she says, yeah, that's not a bad idea. Great. I just have a few more questions. Yeah, I just have a few more questions I'd like to ask you. Now I get more formal, Gail. Now I get more formal because now if I'm sending Paul out there to see the house, now I do want him to have that formal process. Even though I know a lot of what she said, I might reiterate it, show her I was a good listener. Okay, so what you said is the backyard is a little bit small, but tell me a little bit more about the house. It looks like I'm looking at it online here because she also said you can see it online. Yep, while you were talking, I looked it up on MLS and I see some things that he's going to want to talk to you about. Okay, but again, I just want to verify the information I see here. And let me just reiterate that you're working on a condo, and as soon as that's done, you'd like to downsize. So your timing is as soon as that's done. How long do you think that will take? Right? So now you're getting into qualifying questions so that if you hand over the sheet to the outside sales agent, in this case, Paul Mahala, which is going out to this house, he's very clear. There's no guessing. They are downsizing. They are building this, they're rehabbing a condo. This is when they think it's going to be done, and they're motivated. Okay. And so I might go a little bit deeper. So it sounds like you had a lot of traffic, but no offers, right? Right. Good. Okay. So again, she's so willing to listen that I think you just right in that moment in time are going to lean in for some sort of a coaching opportunity. If she says, well, you know what, can you wait till after the holidays? No problem. But what I think I should do is I'm going to pop in the mail to you our strategy. We have a 7-point strategy, and it will really help you see how pricing and condition and staging all tie together before marketing can even begin. Okay. And I think that would be really helpful for you. It's an easy read. I'm going to pop that in the mail to you. What I also would like to do and send you a list of the properties right now that sold that were in your category. That will show you what the market was saying yes to. Now, of course, Paul will come over at your earliest convenience and interpret what that all means in your site. in your case, but it's much more important that he visit the property so he makes an intelligent recommendation. And I think that's all there is to this. I just think it was a fabulous.
Yeah, we lost it for about a minute.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. Anyway, Lindsay, I said that I just thought Gail right, but not right at that moment. I thought it. Bueller.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Never mind.
On my end.
Yeah, it's all good. I'll move.
Danny?
I'll move on. Go ahead, Leslie.
So to me, it's just always a dance of, she seems so open and like, yeah, I'd like another opinion. I mean, wow, what a great opportunity. I wish I had called her. But yeah, I think it's a dance of how much is enough and how much, is too much, just because if you go too long, you don't want to frustrate. But I think the way you posed it right there is you're educating kind of at the same time about the process. And, I'm not there in my calls. I mean, I just think the way you did that was so great. I'm going to listen to it 10 times. And
yeah, well, here's the thing. What's interesting is behind the board here, and I think I offered this to everybody and the team leaders to share this call. I thought it was so important, and I got to whiteboard it out with Laura. The reason why I just hyper-focused on it is because there's a moment in time where an offer, and there's a lot of different offers, absolutely makes sense. You're not insulting anybody. It's not salesy. Its timing is there. And the situation is screaming for it because somebody is reading their mind out loud. And that's what this gal was just doing. She was reading her mind out loud. We would like to have other opinions. We're going to be a little bit more thorough in our decision-making process this time. Awesome. Oh my gosh. Jupiter aligns with Mars in this situation where now they're talking to people who might be more strategic. How good could that get for Leah in that moment to say, hey, do I have the guy for you? See, what I could do is I could either have Paul jump on a phone call with you to coach you a little bit right now. Since it's busy, you don't want to have him come over right now. I get it. I'm going to send the materials and I'm going to allow those to arrive. I'm going to have Paul call you just to go through them a little bit so that when you are ready to interview, that you hit the ground running. Because there's no reason to lose the 30 days. You just don't want to be bothered. We understand that. We won't. But we want you to get this information in your hands. And that's where content, strategic content delivered to somebody in that moment in time where they are considering it. This gal is seriously considering it. And I think it becomes very important to get it in her hands. Very, very. Does that make sense, everybody?
yeah, the beat. There are beats to it that, as you say, so I have to just listen to what you said.
Yeah, all good.
100 times.
Yeah, all good.
I'll get it.
Well, again, and I think you can listen to me to try to condition your brain to hear it. I think that's what's most important. You want to hear that moment in time where there's an opportunity for appropriate call to action. The only reason I disagreed with Gail, and I think maybe that Lindsay pushed back a little bit, is because Gail's she heard it like a dog whistle, like I did, right? I mean, and when we hear that at our level, Leslie, I'm not going to tell you our eyes roll up in the back of our head like a shark and you attack, but in our brain, we know that's the opportunity to get there. And so having become experts over a long period of time, what we're going to do in that moment is say, look, you need me. Like, you need me. We're not going to be afraid as veterans to say, this is perfect. This is one of those situations where you need me. Hey, guys. Hello. Sorry, Gail. So you need me in this moment. And so here's the deal. Tell me again. You're moving here because of this. Tell me again. You got some people, but nobody made an offer, right? You thought you had some negative feedback on the property. Did the buyers tell you that? Or did the agents tell you that? Who said that there were problems with the property? So now she's asking those qualifying questions to dig deeper because the gal served it up in a silver platter. So depending on your comfort level and your expertise, but I think for Leah, working for Paul from afar, just there's your close. Just go for it. Leah, I know you came on a little bit later, but we were just breaking down the beginning of the call where you get into it with this gal and she starts to read her mind openly and says, I'm thinking of having somebody over. And I posed the question to everybody, what would you have said right then and there, right? And that was the time for the close. I'm going to go back and listen to it. Leah, how are you, by the way?
Doing fine,
Yeah,
Danny.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you've been my guinea
Sorry for
pig.
coming in.
That's okay. You've been my guinea pig for 2 weeks, and I love you for it. So let's go back and see how this progresses a little bit more. I think it's worth it. And then I want, Clubba, I'm putting you in the hot seat since I haven't talked to you in a little bit. I want some outside sales stuff that you and your team have going on. Hang on.
Well, we're looking probably the middle of January. Then I'm totally hearing saying that of course, and I'm glad this time around you're actually going to be looking at your options once before you actually decide who you want to list the property with. And we're just in the area actually, because like I said, our office is right next to the old theater. And if you wanted to help someone as far as making some renovations or updates on the bathrooms or anything like that, I mean, I'm looking at some of the pictures that you have still online in the MLS.
Good. I like
yeah,
that.
it's a pretty good property actually, given the right kind of buyer.
Good, positive.
Well, it is a really good property.
See?
I mean, that's why I'm shocked because it is a good property. It's a lovely home. So, my husband and I are absolutely like, what? So I think exactly right. Given the right buyer, and maybe that's where, my thoughts exactly, Mr. Suresh, is I did notice that the property was on the market. If I'm looking at it right, this was on the market since April. Does that sound about right? Yeah. Wow. Okay. Wow. That's a really long time to be on the market and not get an offer. I was expecting that you'd at least tell me that you'd gotten an offer for the price that you were asking for, or at least something that, a little bit closer or at least.
Okay, all right. Let's stop this one here because we could really, they did really connect. Bravo on a couple of things here. Complimenting the property, having it up on front of you online. But this is the second time I've heard you, Leah, really go into the details of how long it's been. I get you're agitating the pain a little bit, and maybe you're not even doing it intentionally, but you're say if you don't know what you're doing, that's called agitating the pain. Geez, you were on for a long time. I would have expected you had some offers. And I think in some circumstances, that's right to set it up to say, well, good news for you. We have a solution. We have a strategic approach. You're already beyond that in this call, Leah. So I don't think you need it. But what I think is missing, and I'm going to cut the call there for this analysis because I do want to spend some time on outside sales today. What's missing is content. Right there is that, look, I know you've said a couple of times that you'd like to really pick this up in January. We have a strategic plan that Paul follows that I'd like to get out to you immediately because you could really use it. It'd be important for you. I loved what you said. I'm glad to see that, you're thinking about this more strategically and that you're going to take your time. Good news. We think just like that. You connected. So now what you want to do is you just want to make sure that you get that plan out to her because it's a piece of content that proves you got the right people. Oh, and by the way, what we could do is send you some pictures of properties that sold around you while you're on the market. So we can take a really good look at that. So what we found, especially with expireds, Leah, that content matters. If you send them some stuff that sold in their price category while they were on, they get to make a comparative analysis themselves. Okay. And if you show how you have a plan that is organized and makes them think, wow, there is a plan out there that I can follow. Now you've set yourself up with those two pieces of content to set Paul up for his interpretation, his insight. And that's the reason for the visit. Now I'm coming over to add insight to the properties that sold and how that relates to the plan and what this all means for you. It's a perfect setup. So instead of having to ask and this, quite frankly, this call's over right there. You don't need to keep going. It's over. Ask for the appointment right there if it's appropriate. Say, I know you said, recognize what she said. I know you said you'd like to wait to January, but we have these pictures in this plan. I'll send them to you. But would you, because it's no problem for us, Would you like Paul to have a quick stop by, even though you won't be deciding till January, to give you a little coaching? Yes or no? If it's a yes, wonderful. Break out the seller qualifying questionnaire, just like, Gail suggested. Go deeper, get a good appointment booked. If it's no, no problem. Let me get this stuff to you. Then I'll follow up prior to the holiday to make sure you received it so you can digest it. And then I'll call you after the holiday to book a time where Paul can come over and add his insight. Period. You're done. Got it, Leah?
Got it.
Yeah. Very good. And Leah, if we have time at the end of this call, remind me. Hang on, Leslie. Leah, I'll go into a little bit of the agent recruiting, but not everybody in this call is in that lane. I'll demonstrate for those of you that want to see what I'm helping Leah with. She's also on the call recruiting agents. So remember, it's 3 heroes of the story. There's buyers, sellers, and agents. So they're all treated the same way. You're all looking to see what they want. Number one, you've got to understand what the hero of the story wants and what is their problem or challenge in getting it. That allows you to insert yourself as the guide with a plan. So you set yourself up perfectly to be that person that offers insight as to how to overcome. And that's where I started the call with resourcefulness. Go ahead, Leslie. You had a comment there.
I just wondered if Leah is using the plans, are you sending those out via email to people kind of as a prelim and as kind of a gift or an offering to help them? And because I just find the plans are so helpful, concise, and really effective. I mean, it really helps me say all the critical stuff, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Leah, do you have the stuff to give out?
You mean like an email, like marketing stuff?
No, yeah. Okay. So the answer is no. I can just tell the way she's saying it. So.
Danny,
Paul, go ahead, Paul.
We do send an email with that, and I went on the appointment on Monday with these people.
Yep.
The wife said,
Awesome.
"You got it. I got to
Beautiful.
talk to the husband, but they won't be back.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So I went anyways because I wanted to knock them out.
Yeah, beautiful. There's the conclusion. That's exactly what I would have suggested. And I didn't have time, Paul, to go through the whole call, but I thought this was excellent. And what my emphasis was, since you and I are talking about training, right? There's the moment that Leah and any of your agents need to be connected to. That's what we got out of this call analysis here, is that moment of offer. For you and I and Gail, that's why she jumped in so quickly. We sensed that closing opportunity, so we're going to go for it. But I don't want everybody in this call, including Leah and Leslie, to be overwhelmed by that. I think what they said was right. Offer that piece of content, which is that strategy, supplemented by those pictures of solds, and then really try to see if now is appropriate. For you to close for that, no problem, right? You nailed it. And she did too, right? So good. Did she book the appointment, or did you call back after the call and book it?
No, she books it, puts it on my calendar, and then I call the morning of. I have to make sure before I go, 2 hours before.
Yeah.
And the seller was like, "Well, you really don't have to come if you don't want to." And I'm thinking, of course I want to, because I want this $700,000 listing.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Paul, have you ever found that calling again prior to the appointment actually hurts you because they can second guess themselves?
No, it helps me flush out if they're serious and they're motivated.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
But sometimes I would say there's a percentage that I can't reach, and
Yeah.
then I don't go.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, that's interesting.
I'm not going to waste my time.
That's interesting. Good. So similar to Gail's point about all that, everybody just want everybody else to understand. You're talking about 2 really good pros, Gail and Paul. These are pros with thousands of hours of distinctions that when we hear that little high-pitched dog whistle, like we come a-running. We know how to close those moments. And again, when I say close those moments in a positive way, we know that is a person in need of our real help and that there's a real opportunity. And we're just going to shove ourselves right through the door and say, hey, listen, why don't I come over now, do a little coaching? Won't be long. It'll take me a little bit. That way you don't have this anxiety. Why would you have to think about this through the holidays? Let me give you a little coaching right now, right? And I think it's an easy close for veterans. For rookies or somebody who's a little less comfortable, lead with content. Lead, just like Leslie was saying. Lead with the content. Say, look, I've got this stuff I want to get to you. I also want to give you a look at what sold around you while you were on the market. And I want to make sure I have the best email for you because I can set you up to see if anything comes on and sells in that neighborhood between now and January 15th. Now, of course, if you don't mind, I'd be happy to come over and hand deliver this stuff and coach you through it. I think something like that, if you're less confident the way that the three of us are in that moment, okay? So I think that's just a degree of experience, but we can all get the same result. From the rookie to the pro, you can still get the same result. You're just going through it a little bit differently. Leslie, does that make sense, especially to you?
Yes, yeah, it does. I totally get Gail would just go ahead and just move right forward. I mean, that makes sense to me too.
Yep.
I don't think there was a right and wrong. I think there was an additional beat, which is we have this content, but she's setting somebody else up. You know, so which is different than if Paul was doing the original call. So, but I just wanted to let Leah know that the things that she's sending, I find if she reads them, are really helpful. And I just think she did a great job.
She did. Bravo. Hey, Gail, your mic's open. I want to make sure that you have a bite at that too. I was complimenting you and Paul for the ability to really hear immediately that you could probably even cut out a step. The way that you would do it, because I know as aggressive as it sounded to some people in the call, I know what kind of, professionalism you would make any call. Anything you wanted to add to that? Gail Rossetti? Check. Nope, lost her. Okay, all right, I gotta move.
Can I add something? I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here, Dan.
Yep, okay, Gail, go ahead, Gail, before I go back to Paul. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So I think, each personality is different.
Yep.
As long as it gets to the point of
For sure.
asking, I didn't hear the fine details in
Yes.
there, but it was a long conversation. It was good.
Yep.
It needed to be closed.
Agreed.
And then Leah did a great job getting to know her.
Yeah, good. No doubt.
And
There's no doubt. And that's why, and Paul, I'll let you go next too. All the closers listening to this stuff, whether it be in the group or online, are going to say, close it, close it, close it. That's just because we know. Like we know we hear that whistle a little bit better than everybody else who just doesn't have the hours. But the teaching moment is listen for an opportunity to, when I say close, like this was almost begging for you to grab the bull by the horns moment. And Leah does it, and she closes it clearly because he gets the appointment. But I think, Paul, there's the coaching moment, which you've been asking me about, because you and I are working on this recruiting thing. And this is important for Leah to know as well on the recruiting calls, is to really figure out what is it that this person wants and needs. It's kind of like this blend of these two things. And so when we know they really need us, the three closers on the call, like, yeah, close that. Just get over there. Like what you can wait till then, but why not? Right? So there you go. All right, Paul, go ahead. Oh, sorry, Leslie.
We have another seller who also, ability to the strategy, having a system and the analysis. He's just like wooed practically by, and I think maybe in this day and age with all the technology and everything, that data and the analysis and a system, a clear system, I think it helps put people at ease, and it certainly with me.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And, look, at top producers get away with doing this on muscle, right? A lot of top producers that I coach, Leslie, will go in there on muscle, and their confidence is so powerful that people do business with us because of it. I'm telling you that I've made that adjustment over the last 6 years to absolutely not do that anymore, to absolutely lead with content and education. I have plenty of confidence when you need it. I can open up a whole can of whoop ass when I need it, right? But the point is, I don't need that 99% of the time. What I need to be is a gentle guide that leads people to their own conclusions so that they can make an informed decision. Let me say that again. I need to be a gentle guide that educates people, that empowers them to make their own decision. It's a much better way to do business. And that leads with having a good strategic approach underneath, meaning I have content to give you. I have information to give you. And I'm happy to give you my insight as to what it means to you and your situation. But before I go there, what is it that you want? Well, I want to downsize. When do you need to be there? I would love to be there by April. No problem. I don't see any problem in that. I'm looking at your house online, and I know with my strategy, I'll get you there. I'm not confident. In fact, if you let me come over now before the holidays, I'll actually set you at ease so you can enjoy Christmas and New Year's without thinking about all this. Bang. And that's what Paul did. So bravo to him. Hey, Kleba, I got to get you in here. And oh, Paul, sorry. Go ahead. You were going to say something first, and then I want you and Lee to hang in.
I just wanted to.
Yeah.
Just the timeline here. I spoke to Lee on Saturday morning after that Friday call from last week and gave her 10 minutes of feedback, the high level feedback.
Yes.
And then she turned around and used that information, and she got this call. So
yeah.
It does work.
Absolutely. Bravo. I mean, look at Leah, you're one of our best students right at the moment, just moving swiftly through this and just making these are small adjustments for good people. There's no rocket science here. So no, yeah. But Paul, this speaks to what you and I were trying to figure out as in a recruiting sense. What is it that we're trying to teach? Like, you were looking at that competitor that has this 5-week program. 5 weeks of what? You know what I mean? This is 5 weeks of solid understanding. Like Leslie's beginning to really benefit in the field from that strategy. Like we've lumped you over the head, Leslie, how many times with the core buyer strategy, the core seller. We keep coming back a campfire every 2 weeks. And that's empowering you, getting up underneath you to bring that to the consumer and feel like you're there. Now, the little subtleties of experience, taking it to the field by yourself and getting lumped over the head, bringing that feedback here and adjusting, that's the feedback mechanism. That's 101 in success. You go, you practice it in the real world, you bring back the lumps on your head, we smooth them down with sandpaper, and we put you right back in the game, right? So bravo, Paul and Leah, for making those adjustments, because $700,000 listing based on an adjustment. Bravo. Standing in ovation. Kleba, get in here. Let's go. Poor Kleba fell down. How old are you, Kleba, that you would fall down and break yourself in many pieces? Huh? You all right? Are you concussed?
I just turned 26.
Yeah. And look, 120 in dog years, huh? How you doing? Are you, in all seriousness?
Final walkthrough right now, Danny, but people are outside, so I've got a minute.
Yeah. Okay. So real quick, biggest challenge for you and the team in a Lake Norman, North Carolina marketplace that is or is not changing.
The marketplace is changing huge here.
Yep. Yeah, that was a setup. So meaning just give me one tidbit that I can run with, even though you have to go to the walkthrough while you hobble on, wounded knee. Tell me the biggest challenge in a changing market that's gone from white hot to what?
It's gone from white hot to dead.
Yeah, interesting.
Zero.
Interesting. If I would have put a touch on something, what would it be? Would it be that's an opportunity for sellers and expireds and having the tough, come to the right price meeting? Is that it? Because I would suggest it.
Yeah, for me, and Josh and Charlene, we've come to the realization that, all right, it's slow. It's time to kind of retool a little bit, adjust our approach and our technique. And spring starts January 1st in real estate, right? That's what they say.
Yep.
So right now we're kind of in a, not to be repetitive, a little bit of a retool.
Yep.
Changing our approach so that when the new year does hit, we're just gonna beat the competition. We're gonna hit the ground running.
Yeah. All right, good. You can put me back on mute, and I'll deal with this. Thank you for the little anecdote, and I hope you feel better. And we will catch up. So here's what I would suggest in that case. And the reason I asked Chris is because Lake Norman, North Carolina was one of the hottest markets that I coach in. And so, there's challenges in coaching in hot markets like Seattle, and Cantu's team there is that, it's almost too hot. Because, you're always chasing this, multiple offers. It feels weird. Sometimes you even have this imposter syndrome as a buyer agent. Am I really adding any value, or am I an order taker? So there's a lot of weird stuff that comes with hot markets that you have to deal with. But as it adjusts, it's actually a fabulous opportunity for you to add true value. Fabulous. Because why? Number one, that's a good call to action for buyers. Look, the market's correcting. And anybody that really is on the market still, and is going to hang in there. Probably has to sell for a pretty good reason. So here's where we see the correction. And this is where you have to do your homework. You have to get into MLS. You have to see average price in the marketplace you cover slipping or not. Paul Mihalowicz and I talked about this too, because his market in Birmingham, Michigan was very steady and going along. And then all of a sudden it also, I wouldn't say, Paul, it screeched, to a halt. It changed. And so by knowing your statistics, and Paul is a statistical guy, so to Chris and his team, knowing that, can we see any evidence of how quickly it's correcting? When it comes to a screeching halt, something still sells every month, and that accumulates enough data to give you an average, right? The middle price can be tricky. I'd take the average price probably, because what I'm looking for is everything being pulled down? Is luxury slowing? Is the bottom coming? What's happening? And you could look at it in tranches. Is entry level way off versus trade up versus luxury? You could look at it that way too. But I would grab on to at least a couple of talking points about stats for buyers and say, look, this market's correcting over the last couple of months, 2%. That's a 4% drop in only 2 months. I think it's a wonderful time to be able to use that data during a negotiation to get a pretty good darn deal right here, right? And so that would be that spot. But the bigger thing will be there are plenty of people that want to and have to sell. And as a market hits this top and it starts to cool down, there are people that are sitting there, just like that lady Leah was talking to, that are really good strategy, good advice, and they're waiting for it to come. And so as things expire, you find a lot of people just get frustrated and they don't really have to sell, but there are plenty of people in expired, canceled, withdrawn pile that have to sell. And like that lady, they're miffed. What the heck just happened? It's a lovely home. I don't get it. First, people would tell me I needed to fix stuff. Then they weren't. Then the market said this. They're discombobulated. So what an opportunity to slide in for those heroes and start off with nothing more than guidance. Hey, it looks like a good home. What happened? Well, we got this far. Well, really, in our strategy, that's pretty far. You got all the way to communication. So what was the feedback? Because now you have to go back and look at the staging and the condition. What did they say? What else did they buy? Let me send you a list of what else they bought when you were on. It all becomes extremely logical. And so this provision of information as to the reality, they understand its value. If they don't, they're off running around looking for some esoteric coaching and guidance on what to do. And you're not just being practical. Like it's sort of like the logical brain falls out of our ears and we forget to be practical. What does this person want? They want to know why they failed. What does this person want? They want to know what direction the market's heading in to make a decision. Should I do it now? Should I wait? What does this person want? Did you leave it on during the holidays? Sure. We don't know who will have to move and buy in the holidays. We just sold one that's closing. When are you closing with the gals in California?
February 1st.
Yeah, but it was bought here and they have to make this mega move and they had to buy.
Well, Nick is closing December 31st.
December 31st. Wanted to close before Christmas. Wanted to have a turkey in the house. So you just don't ever know what the circumstances are for buyers and sellers. But there's always somebody in our industry that has to. Death, divorce, job movement, slowdown. People make a firm decision all the time in real estate. It is our job to go out and hunt them down and deliver them practical advice. And what you hear from the pros in this group when we do sales training is that when we hear an opportunity for practical advice, we've kicked the door open. Whether you hire me or not, you're going to listen to this, okay? I'm going to grab you by the lapels and say, stop, stop, stop. Stop running out there and getting poor advice. There's good advice. Here it is, right? There you go. So that's what I would say is the most important thing for you all to do, right? Is just pay attention to that, right? So, Paul, I want to come back to you and talk about this, right?
Okay.
Yep. Let's go back to recruiting.
Okay. Which part do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about what you were saying about recruiting and that value proposition. What is it that they want, right?
they want support, they want someone available when they have questions, help them keep deals together, how to get deals, close deals, that experience that they don't have. That's what they want.
Yeah. Okay. So Leah, in making some of these calls to agents, what have you found?
Well, that sounds about right. Some of the folks I spoke with don't get enough coaching. Some of them are barely new to the industry. Some of them started like a year or two ago, and I would normally ask them if they think that they've gotten the success that they wanted so far. And some of them would say, yeah, maybe I did, or maybe I have. And then I guess it's just coaching. No one's mentoring them or anything, helping them out as far as them getting a listing. Because once they actually do get a listing, for some folks that I've spoken to, they tend to get confused about the process. There are some things that they're not confident enough to do, and they don't have anyone at their office is willing to help them out or is going to be there to watch their back or anything like that.
Cool. I find that's true too. So digging in a little bit more, think about it as a process. Where along a transaction, because most of these agents are going to come in with a very transactional mindset. They have no idea that they should be working on their business or their business plan, right? They have no idea. It's very similar to that seller that you were talking to. She has no idea that there's actually a plan that she could refer to, right? So we have, and also Paul, here we go again, right? So to empower Leah with some content, right? The basics of the agent plan. So her ability to say, well, look, here's the good news is that we take a strategic approach to helping agents, but I hear you, is that you need some help and guidance, but where along this process do you mean? And Leah, these are the types of questions that become, remember I was trying to teach you to go from those stock questions more into conversational. Well, there's the moment, right? Because now what you do is you say, all right, well, wait a minute. So explain to me, when you get a deal or you get somebody to work with, is there anyone there to help you write the offer or help you negotiate the deal or help you close the deal? Paul, I think what we want to do, and we probably should do this for your whole team, is to get that TRC infographic that shows the management modules, how everything moves from market. And this is what I was helping Duran and his inside sales agents as well, is that you have to understand where you are as part of this process. There is this marketing module that leads to this conversion module, that leads to a closing module, that leads to the development of a past client community. Those are the managed segments of this business, Leah, right? So we want to say, well, tell me a little bit more. Are you not getting help during closing? Are you doing all your closing? And of course, Paul, this is predicated on if you offer closing coordination as part of what you do, right? And that's why I think you should, because it's really a big deal when you're talking about broker sumo and all that. Well, we have all these plans in place that make closing coordination much easier. And we give all our agents, all free access to that. It's included in what we offer. Now Leah's empowered with being able to say, well, we have a solution for that. There's something in place for that. Why don't I get Paul on the phone with you to tell you more detail? So see, it always comes back to an understanding of the content. That's really, really important here, is that what is the content of our offer? And it's always the same to the extent that it's a strategic approach. Look, I can answer any micro question that you have, anything, but I need to know what's the problem first. I'm not going to tell you about, and Paul, that's what I think all these recruiters make a mistake on. We have this and we have this and we have this and we have that. And they all get dragged to the bottom where the only thing they can offer is, hey, we've got 7 layers and we've got this. And, it has nothing to do with improving that agent's book of business. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those other things, but they're leading with something that is not providing what the agent wants and needs. Right, Leah? You've already found out what the agent wants and needs. They want help in the moment that's most critical to them. So your job is to dig in a little bit further and find out what moment. Closing, negotiation, lead conversion, right? That becomes an important thing. Does that make sense, Leah?
Yeah, absolutely does.
Yeah, and because most... Oh, hang on, Leslie. And because most of the agent recruits that you'll have on the phone are going to require more time, then you need that piece of content to give them. Say, look, in the meantime, let me just email over this agent course that we have, an infographic. We use this kind of stuff at our office. We actually have it for buyers and sellers for our agents. So, Paul, that's an interesting demonstration to give them the free agent infographic, the free agent course, to give that to them to say, hey, by the way, when you join us, we have the same kind of coaching and training to help you with buyers and sellers, right? But I want to make it clear, we have Broker Sumo. I want to make it clear we have a mentoring program in place. And those are the things that I think become a very important part of the offer. Why? They solve the main issue that she's running into. Yeah? Leah, you good with that?
Finding the bruise.
Yeah, for sure. Paul, go a little deeper. Tell me.
You go through a discovery process. You just ask questions, and through that discovery process, you find the pain, you find the bruise, and then you turn around and press on that bruise and close on what those pains are or how you can solve it.
Yeah. And in my experience so far, and I think it's echoed by Leah's experience so far, the number one bruise that I'm seeing is the abandonment of the agent. There are all of these brokerages out there that are making these great claims about coaching, training, support. And some of the biggest ones are making that claim. And it's their agents I'm hearing from. But in the moment, nobody was there for me. In the moment, I couldn't get a question answered. And so I think if we just take a beat and hear that loud and clear, how can we be a group, a team, a brokerage, whatever we are, and we're recruiting, how can we be a team that takes that seriously and solves the issue? And that's what, my obsession has been. Go ahead, Leslie, you had a question there.
Well, a big difference is because I was recruited by a number of different agencies, is you're 1 in 100, 1 in 200 versus, I don't know how many agents, Paul, we even have right now, but because it's kind of a dynamic number, but it's just so different. And I think, some people like to work for large corporations and other people like to work for smaller businesses. And it's much more of a boutique, situation. And if there's nothing worse, I'll never forget writing my first offer and thinking, oh my God, this is a legal contract. And I really have no idea what I'm doing. And I know I'm supposed to know, but I don't.
Yeah.
And if you don't have somebody to help you through that, oh my God, it's horrifying.
Yeah, right. Okay, so there you go. There it is, live from a relatively new agent. Here's what I would say. My obsession is to help as many people as I can. And I see that through more and more agents at the Griffin Realty Group, or the Realty Classroom for that matter, I can do that better. So my obsession is, how do you keep a boutique feeling across a lot of people? So as a broker owner, my thought, as I work on this with Laura, my thought is we just need to do a better job of making sure that those issues like that, hey, I've got a listing appointment tomorrow. I just got it tonight at 8:00. Where can I go and on demand watch how you do that analysis again, so that I'm on my own and I feel still supported? So I think the coaching training and all these solvable issues, first of all, what is the problem? I don't know how to write the offer in the middle of the night because it's a legal contract. Well, first of all, I don't know how to do the analysis. Now I'm at a deal. I don't know how to write the contract. I think that stuff is easy enough to screen capture it, and put it up online and say, look, it's here on demand. However, also, here's the mentor that we've assigned to you. This person is part of our agent core that is experienced. So in addition to the on-demand stuff, you can pick up the phone and call this person and they will help you. And that there's financial incentive in it for those people to help you. And I'll leave that to Paul to deal with all that stuff, because for you, it's him. And you can't do better than Paul Mihalowicz at your company. So while we figure this out, Leslie, yeah. But I mean, you get my point, is that, and I don't mean you know, we have to do a better job of this coaching training so that you can stand on your own 2 feet and eventually really just come really more for bouncing it off. My top producers come to me more to bounce the idea off, calm their emotions. You know, I'm thinking of John and Steve in particular. They'll come to me for more of that moral support and my insight that might be a little bit deeper than theirs about how to market something or what the strategy is. But I think we're always trying to get up underneath you to empower you to go do this on your own. And I think we have to be certainly resourceful to an extent, but it's, you know, we want you to be confident in being able to do it. So Leah, bravo, because you have struck upon what that thing is. And now I think for Paul and I and you is to really express to you how to do that in that moment. And it's by understanding in what module of the process are they? Are they having a marketing problem where there's no support on how to market? Are they having a conversion process where they have no idea how to use even the back end of MLS to make a good offer and convert somebody in a service way? And do they have any help on the closing plan? Are they doing it themselves? Like Leslie said, oh my gosh, what? I have to deal with attorneys and escrow companies and all that by myself? That's overwhelming. That's enough to have you quit the business, right? So I think a little training there, Paul, with the 3 of us, will go a long way with Leah, but she's right on it. It's there. And Leah, my big conclusion, you've got to be comfortable with the content. And Leslie already is and feels strongly about it. You need to understand that those 3 core plans, always a nice gift to affirm that relationship and reiterate strategy is critical, right? Always be ready to give that gift. Cool?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Otherwise, bravo. You're my hero. 2 weeks in a row. Have a fabulous week and go out and practice this stuff. I think it's important to go out and try it. Get the lumps on your head. And not so much. Most of you are doing a great job. I mean, I just don't really hear any wild, egregious, way off in the poppy fields with Dorothy mistakes, you know, as I like to say. So bravo. Go out there and try it. Don't be so afraid to be a good guide, because when you care for other people, your resourcefulness will shine and you'll find a way, including getting your butt back here next week. And we'll talk about it some more. All right. See you, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Danny.
You bet.
All right. Thanks, Danny. Bye.
You bet. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Danny.
You bet. See you, Georgie.